I think we are live now. It's working, I hope.
Like Frankenstein's monster, it's live!
I love this. So welcome. This is our first live YouTube broadcast. So this is a little bit of an experiment where today Simon and I are going to be chatting about how to improve your pitch when you go networking. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. If you don't know me already, my name is Charlie Wyman and I specialise in B2B marketing strategy and on LinkedIn. And Simon, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Well, I'm a presentations expert. I teach people how to make better presentations, or at least less rubbish presentations. I nearly said a rude word there. Less than 2 minutes into the live, and I nearly said a rude word. Less rubbish is the word that I'm looking for.
Less rubbish. I love that. So presentations, I am writing quite a lengthy blog post at the moment, specifically about presentations, because a lot of people think of presentations as just going and speaking in front of a live audience, which is so much more than that. So what we're going to do is every Friday at 11:30, we're going to commit to this for the next few weeks. Simon and I are going to be live broadcasting on YouTube talking about different presentation tips. So today we're going to be talking about networking events, and we're going to be talking about networking events online and in person, but essentially it doesn't matter whether you are going meeting somebody online or in person. The same theories apply, because networking, when you go, you don't want people to go, oh, I'm bored, I want to move away, or you don't want people to be talking to you or listening to you thinking, I can't wait to leave. We want you to be able to pitch yourself effectively.
To be fair, Charlie, my wife has been saying that for about 30 years now. I can't wait to leave. That's the way our relationship has gone.
So yeah, we don't want to like capture people and just like make you hang around. But essentially, like what we want to talk about is how to pitch yourself effectively so that you are remembered and so that people genuinely want to listen to what you've got to say and are more likely to either work with you if there's an interest there, or refer you or introduce you to people that will be interested in. So Simon,
that's the idea.
What are your thoughts around this?
The big mistake that everybody always makes is to talk about themselves and to tell people what they do. And you know what? Nobody blinking cares. So that first question you said is, Simon, tell us about yourself. And I went, I'm a presentation skills trainer. Nobody gives a monkeys about what I do. Everybody's going to a networking meeting. Everyone's going to everything thinking, what's in it for me? Do I need this person's skills? If yes, I'll listen. If no, I won't. And there's a point where I think it's a big bugbear of mine, and I'm going to get on my soapbox if we're not careful, because everybody tells people what they do, and then they compound it by telling people how they do it.
Oh, yes.
As if anybody cares. It's just, it's like going, I'm an author. Great. If I'm a copy editor. Great. If I need a copy editor, that's fine. But if not, and you kind of go, but I'm not a normal copy editor. I'm a left-handed copy editor. Who cares whether you're left-handed or right-handed? What I care about is, does the copy work? That's the only thing that I care about. And yet, because we are all so excited about what we do and how we do it, because we spent years and years and years learning our craft. I've spent 2 decades learning how to do this, because it's important to me. And therefore, if it's important to me, my subconscious assumes it's important to somebody else. Well, actually, do you know what? It ain't. What's important to them is what I can give them, what I can do for them, what they can get out of the conversation, what they need, not what I do, and sure as hell not how I do it.
You picked up on what they need, which I think is really important, because a lot of people, when they go networking, they assume that they're talking to somebody that automatically needs what they have, which is why they want to sort of go to networking with the view of selling something. And I believe that there was a load of research done about networking groups where, go into a networking group and ask how many people are here to sell. Everybody raises their hand, and, say how many people are here to buy. Nobody raises their hand, So if you're just trying to sell to somebody that is not in a position to buy anything, then just by telling them what it is that you do is not going to help you sell to them. That, and the fact that not everybody is ready to buy from you right there and then. But that doesn't mean that they're never going to want to buy from you. So when you're pitching, you want to position yourself in a way that people are curious and intrigued about what it is that you're doing, so that they want to find out more, so that you can open up that relationship and keep it going, rather than make the other person go, I don't want to speak to that person anymore, I'm just not interested.
Yeah. Nobody ever sold anything at a networking meeting. Any sales that ever happen come after the networking meeting, when somebody follows up. So your priority at the networking meeting should be to be interesting, so that they want, and memorable, so they can find you. Now, those two things sound like the same thing, interesting and memorable, but they're not. Interesting is they want what you've got, and memorable, they can find you to get what you've got, which is a very different thing. I'm lucky in that my surname is Raybould, Raybould. There are not many Rayboulds in the country. All you have to do is go, it was that name that sounded like rainbow, and you're halfway there. But if you call John Smith, you've got to find other ways of being more interesting. Turn up to networking naked and see if people remember that. But that doesn't, that makes you interesting but memorable in the wrong way, I guess.
I was going to say, you don't want to be memorable in the wrong way, because I think a lot of people, when you go to networking events, are memorable in the wrong way, because you're remembered as being dull as dishwater, irrelevant, and like off point. Because as well, like a lot of the biggest mistake I find in networking meetings is that when people talk to other people, instead of listening to what they've got to say, they're sat there going, right, okay, when's my opportunity to say what I do? When's my opportunity to give them a response and try and sell to them? And there's so much focus on talking about yourself, and not enough focus on listening and actually, acknowledging those points where you can engage.
Right. And I want to go further than just listening and talk about asking. Don't just listen to what the other person does, ask what the other person does, because it may be that what they're telling you is a clue to what they actually need. So it could be that, I've heard people say to me, I don't ever make any presentations, everything I do is on the phone.
Stop presenting.
Exactly, but they don't think of it as presenting, because it doesn't involve PowerPoint slides, and it doesn't involve standing at the front of the room. It does involve lots and lots of one-to-one voice-only presentations. So the more questions you ask, the more useful you can be when you say to people, at the end of the day, what it is that you do. So the trick is to find out what they do, what they need, and then either offer that or don't offer that. But don't pretend to offer. Don't pretend to offer. So I first got into this kind of thing by doing some voice coaching with actors. There's some guys from the Royal Shakespeare Company who were in Newcastle, and that's how I started to get interested in it. So that is something I could do, but I'm not the best person for that. There are specialists in telephone voice work, so I would pass that person over to specialists in telephone voice work. But the point is that you find that it's always better to go second.
Oh yeah,
and those people who go, here's me, talk about me, I'm going to talk about me, I'm talking about me. By definition, they're missing the opportunity to find out what it is the other person needs, what it is the other person wants, and how to customize what they say to be closer to what the other person is hinting that they need.
And a good tip on that, if somebody automatically starts by asking you what it is that you do, say to them, I don't really want to be talking about myself, I'm more interested in what you do, and then switch it back to them, because the more insights around what they do you have, it's a bit of a backwards way of saying that, but the more you have insights in what they do, the more you can customize and tweak what you say that you do to a way that meets their interests or their needs or their desires, and the whole thing just works so much better.
But I've got this vision now of, when two people arrive at a door at the same time and they both gesture for the other person to go through first and nobody goes through the door. I've got this vision of networking meetings. What do you do? No, after you. No, after you. So there comes a point where you do have to bite the bullet. But even when you do start talking about what you do, the key thing here is to talk about their pain first. Talk about their pain or their pleasure, but talk about what it is that their problem is, so that they go, yes, and they identify with that. And then you offer what you do. Coincidentally, what you do, of course, it's pure coincidence and luck. What you do happens to be the solution to what it is that they are looking for. A superb example. Some time ago, I went to one of those horrible formal networking meetings where you start at 7:30 with bacon and sandwiches and cups of tea, and by 8 o'clock you wish you'd stayed in bed. You know the kind of ones.
The ones that happen every week, yeah.
and then everybody goes round and says for 30 seconds what it is they do. It's just a horrible format that doesn't work for anybody quite a lot of the time. But accountant after accountant stood up and said, "I'm an accountant." And you could just see the entire audience going, "Oh, for God's sake, another accountant. I don't need a sodding accountant. I'm comfortable with my accountant. Liam, just shut up and sit down." There was, however, one guy who'd cottoned on to this, who instead of saying, "I'm an accountant," he looked at the assembled crowd and went, "How many of you are self-employed?" Most would put our hands up. "How many of you are VAT registered?" About half of us put our hands up. "How many of you do your own VAT returns?" Of that half, almost everybody put their hands up. At which point he got us, because he then said, "And how many of you absolutely hate doing your VAT stuff?" At that point, he's got us, because we're emotionally bought in, and his next line is brilliant, because he said, "Well, you know that pain about doing your VAT stuff? I make all of that go away." And then there's a pause, and then he says, "And what's more, I do it in a way that will save you more money than I cost." Well, at that point,
he's got everyone.
Absolutely. He's going, "If I give you my business card, I will also give you money." Well, at that point, people are queuing up to talk to this guy. None of the other accountants have got a cat and hell's chance, because A, they're boring, B, they weren't specialists, and C, we didn't identify with their pain before they told us what it is that we do. They just assume that everybody needs an accountant and everybody knows what an accountant does. So people don't even know that they need an accountant.
There's that, again, I always refer it back to a comedian who I've forgotten his name now, but there's that term, it's like, if you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. And it's so true. But the beauty about that, because if anybody's watching this and thinking, yeah, but I offer loads of services, how am I going to do that? The key is to talk about one thing, because then you're going to be more memorable. People do not have the capacity to remember all 10 services that you offer, and then also remember everybody else's pitch. So that guy talking about VAT, he probably does other things, but if he's been to that networking meeting and talked about VAT, the next networking meeting, he wants to increase his chances of conversion and capture other people. So he may then talk about R&D tax credits or something like that, or it could be something else.
He was even cleverer than that.
Ooh.
You're absolutely right, but he was even cleverer than that, because when I spoke to him after the event to congratulate him on his pitch, I asked him how he had decided. How did you know that most of us are And he went, "Well, for the first, everybody is having bacon sarnies and coffee, and I spent that time talking to people to find out what the mode type of person in that audience was. There were 6 or 7 things he could have said he did. You're absolutely right." But he chose to present that one because he'd already done the research to find out what is the button that is going to get more people in this room to respond than anything else.
Yeah. Oh, you've touched on another really, really good point, which is about networking events specifically, because a lot of people go to networking events and think it's all about the event. And it's the same with trade shows and conferences and all of those other things, in that actually being at the event and doing your pitch, that's the easy bit. It's all of the work that you need to do before you go and the follow-ups afterwards, because you mentioned follow-up before. So many people miss out on the follow-ups.
I don't care what your system is, as long as you've got a system.
Yes, but then also it's that, what was that? I was speaking to quite a few people recently that don't have an email database for leads. They have a CRM system for clients and really hot prospects, but nothing for leads. And it's just like, right, okay, if somebody says to you no, that doesn't necessarily mean no, they're never going to work with you. It just means that they don't have a problem big enough for you to solve right now, or it's not a big enough priority for them.
Right. They don't recognise they have a big enough problem, which is not the same as not having it. But yeah.
Yeah, really good point on that. So they just think, oh, right, okay, so that lead's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to put that business card at the bottom of a massive stack of business cards, or a top, and it's just going to get covered in more. Whereas, it's like recently I've converted quite a few clients that I originally spoke to like a year or 2 ago. The time wasn't right then, the time is right now, but they've come back to me and not somebody else because I've stayed front of mind in terms of what we're working on.
Yeah, and there's a dirty trick I use to do that. I don't know if I dare confess this, but it really is a dirty trick. It is such a dirty trick. For people that I really want to work with, my CRM does separate leads from clients and stuff. So in the leads bit, bung in some keywords for those clients that you want to work with, and then set up some Google alerts for those keywords. And that means that whenever somebody's website that contains those keywords changes, Google will send you an email about it. And that means that you've got material that you could then, if you want to, forward to the people that you're trying to foster the relationship with.
Yeah.
Okay. Which means, if you saw this, thought of you, you've probably seen it, but just in case. And it takes you 15 or 20 seconds. It helps you maintain a relationship with that person. It helps that person. Here's the key thing. It helps that person because they might not have seen that updated website, and it might just be the thing that makes them go, oh, blimey. And I've got one of my biggest clients that way, and nurtured them for 3 years before they gave me a call and said, right, you clearly understand the X industry. I better not tell you what it is. The X industry, because you've been having this conversation with me for 3 years about it. Would you like to come to our Edinburgh offices and do so and so and so and so? It's a bit of a dirty Machiavellian trick, but it helps everybody, so why the hell not?
Well, it's not really, I don't think of it as a dirty trick because your intentions are to help them. Like, if you're not in business to genuinely solve problems for people, then you shouldn't really be in business. So it's like, it all comes from a place, don't look like that. All comes from a place of, authenticity. Like, you genuinely want to help people. So there's an argument to say that if you're not following up with people, you're doing them a disservice. Because like you said before, is that, their problems are not big enough problems for them right now. So it's just like with LinkedIn, I do a lot of LinkedIn coaching and marketing training and a thing to do with the strategic side of things. And so many people are so tactical when it comes to marketing that they do different things all the time. But it's like that need for a strategy is never as important because the majority of people just want to brush marketing under a carpet and not acknowledge that it's there. Looking at you,
Simon. Oh, hell. Looking at me, because I'm allergic to marketing. The only thing I hate more than marketing is sales. I put it in the same box as taxes. It's a necessary evil. It's got to be done for the benefit of mankind and stuff, but that doesn't mean I actually enjoy doing it. But there's something I want to pick up on, because you said that the strategy there was important. And there's a bit of strategy that everybody always seems to forget, which is the preparation and the practice of their pitches. They seem to think that they can turn up at a networking meeting without having rehearsed their pitch, and magically the gods of presentations will bequeath upon them a coherent 30-second pitch from nowhere. I just have to look at these people and go, are you? No. So here's something that I really strongly feel, and it's going to sound counterintuitive, but bear with me for a second. I want people to consider, if they know exactly what networking sessions they want to be going to or attending on Zoom or whatever, I don't want them to go to those networking meetings first. I want them to go to networking meetings where they are confident that there are no sales that they are going to lose. So if you go to a networking meeting where you know you are going to bomb, you know nobody cares about what you do, and they don't know the kind of person who knows what you're going to do, you go to those networking meetings, and that is where you screw up. So your 30-second pitch goes horribly wrong the first 5 or 6 times, and it's boring, and you come out in a cold sweat, and yada, 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 and you fluff it. You don't want to be fluffing your 30-second pitch at the meeting where the client is. And I want to put the word "the" in block capitals in Italian. The meeting where the client is coming. You want to go and do that in a networking meeting where the client would never be seen dead, so that it doesn't matter when it all goes horribly wrong. And then you practice, and so that by the time you do get to the meeting where the client, I'm doing my voice, by the time you get to that meeting where the client is, you've got it sorted because you've done it a dozen times in other networking meetings.
You're making me shake a little bit more in my boots, because I'm relating that back to my Speaker Factor talk. I've entered a public speaking competition, which is very, very soon. and I'm trying to practice it and trying to make the time to do that. I am, but not enough. So yeah, it is so important to prepare.
Do you know when you did your exams when you were a kid, Charlie, and your definition of revision was carry your textbooks around and hope you absorb the knowledge in your textbooks by osmosis through your fingertips, right?
No, I was just like, I wasn't really interested in a lot of the stuff back then, so I'm probably the worst person in the world.
Yeah, because I'm going to say that just having the intent to practice
is not enough.
It's not enough.
But
you've got to physically do the damn thing. Do it in private first, then do it to a camera, then do it to an audience who doesn't care, then do it to an audience who does care.
Exactly.
Ideally, of course, doing it to me first and giving me shed loads of money, but that's it.
That's good. Anyway, I've just realised that we've been chatting away for 20 minutes now. We could probably chat away for much longer, but what we're going to do is we're going to have these little chats every week for the next few weeks at 11:30, streaming live on YouTube. So if you do have any questions or you want to follow up specifically about this topic, then I recommend that you head over to my website, so that's charliewyman.com, because there will be a blog article guest written by Simon, which is all around writing your pitch for a networking event. So it's going to cover a lot of what we've talked about today and really help you out with it as well.
I hope to God you're getting it proofread, Charlie, because I'm not the world's best speller.
Okay, I will extra proofread it. It's not live just yet, but by the time people will watch this, it will be live.
Hey! Because for my last book, my proofreader sent me a message. My proofreader sent me a message when she was reading the book, and she went, "Being your proofreader is a bit like being Shane McGowan's dentist," which was harsh, but not unfair. So just check out that blog quite carefully, folks.
But it's good. There's a tip in there, which is acknowledge the skills that you do have, and not to try to be really good at everything, because you're never going to get anywhere with that. So yeah, thank you for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed this recording. If you're watching the recording, let us know in the comments if you have any questions, or if there's any key takeaway or light bulb moment that you've had. And if you want to share your pitch with us in the comments, then go ahead and please do. But until next week, we will see you then.
Take care.
Bye.